Welcome back to the Following Films podcast. So today, we're diving into Mulholland Drive, David Lynch's weird, beautiful, haunting masterpiece. It's one of those movies that stays with you for days after you watch it. You think you got it figured out, and then you realize, no, you really don't. It starts off like this dreamy Hollywood story. A young actress, a mysterious woman with amnesia, a city full of possibility. But as things go on, things start to shift. The details don't line up. Time kind of folds in on itself. And by the end, you're not sure what's real, what's imagined, or whose story you've even been watching. That's what makes Mulholland Drive so fascinating. It's not really a mystery to solve. It's more like a dream unraveling. It's about love, guilt, and the stories we tell ourselves to survive. In this episode, we're going to break down that ending, who Diane really is, what the dream means, and how Lynch turns Hollywood itself into this strange, almost spiritual landscape of illusion and despair. So let's open the box and see what's inside. David Lynch's Mulholland Drive remains one of the most haunting and enigmatic films ever made. It operates like a riddle that refuses to be solved, luring the viewer into a world where time, memory, and identity dissolve into one another. What begins as a mysterious, almost whimsical Hollywood fairy tale gradually transforms into a psychological nightmare. By the end, it's clear that what we've been watching is not a mystery to be unraveled, but an emotional landscape, the mind of a woman caught between fantasy and despair. The film tells the story of two women, Betty Elms and Rita, whose lives intertwine after Rita survives a car crash and loses her memory. Betty, a bright and optimistic aspiring actress, freshly arrived in Los Angeles, takes her in. Together, they embark on an investigation into Rita's identity, which unfolds like a noir detective story bathed in dreamlike light. Everything about this world feels heightened. Betty's charm, the coincidence of events, and the ease with which success seems to come to her. There's an aura of magic and possibility, as though Hollywood itself were conspiring to make her dream come true. As the film progresses, the tone subtly shifts. Details begin to feel off. Conversations repeat, and time loses its logic. What once seemed like a linear story starts to fold in on itself. Eventually, the illusion shatters. We wake, along with the film, into a bleaker, more grounded reality. Betty, we learn, is not real at all. She is the fantasy alter ego of a woman named Diane, a failed actress crushed by jealousy, loneliness, and guilt. Diane's life is the opposite of Betty's. She lives in a cluttered apartment, despises herself, and has lost both her career and her lover, Camilla. In despair, she has paid a hitman to murder Camilla, who now lives in torment, waiting for confirmation that the job has been done. The earlier portion of the film, then, is not a straightforward narrative, but Diane's dream, a self-generated illusion that rewrites her failures into triumphs. In this world, she casts herself as Betty, the talented newcomer who captivates everyone she meets. Camilla, transformed into the amnesiac Rita, becomes helpless and dependent on her. The fantasy allows Diane to reverse the power dynamic that humiliated her in real life. But as her mind struggles to sustain this illusion, pieces of reality leak through. The dream begins to crumble under the pressure of her conscience. The merging of Betty and Diane is one of the most powerful elements of the film. Lynch doesn't present it as a simple plot twist, but as a psychological breakdown. Betty is the embodiment of Diane's ideal self, beautiful, kind, and filled with purpose, but she cannot survive in the face of truth. The gradual blending of these identities dramatizes what happens when the boundary between dream and reality collapses. Diane can no longer distinguish who she is from who she wishes she were. When the dream falls apart, she's forced to face herself, stripped of illusion. Two objects mark this turning point: the blue box and the blue key. They appear throughout the film, their meaning withheld until the end. When Betty and Rita discover the blue box and open it, the entire dream world dissolves. The box doesn't contain an object or explanation. It's simply a void, a symbolic opening through which Diane's constructed reality disappears. The blue key, which later sits on Diane's table, becomes the silent messenger of truth. It signals that the murder she ordered has been carried out, and that the fantasy protecting her from guilt is gone. These two objects function as thresholds between imagination and acknowledgement. Once they appear together, denial is no longer possible. The blue box can be seen as Diane's unconscious mind, locked tight around her shame, while the key represents the act of remembering, of unlocking what she has tried so desperately to forget. Among the most striking and mysterious scenes in Mulholland Drive is the visit to Club Silencio. In this surreal theater, a magician informs the audience that everything they are about to hear is an illusion. There is no band. Music plays, but it's all recorded. The performers mine their emotions, and yet the moment feels intensely real. When the singer collapses but her voice continues, it exposes the fundamental artifice of performance. The revelation devastates Betty and Rita. For Diane, this moment is an awakening, an acknowledgement that the entire world she's been living in, both her dream and her Hollywood ambitions, is built on illusion. Club Silencio stands as the film's metaphorical heart, a place where pretense is exposed, and the boundaries between appearance and reality disintegrate. Equally enigmatic is the figure of the cowboy, who appears briefly but memorably throughout the film. He seems to hover between worlds, appearing at crucial moments to issue calm but unsettling warnings. His dialogue is cryptic, but his tone carries authority, as though he represents fate, conscience, or the unseen system that controls Hollywood itself. Some viewers interpret him as Diane's inner judge, the voice of guilt reminding her that choices have consequences. Others see him as a symbol of the entertainment industry's ruthless control, the faceless power that decides who gets to succeed and who is discarded. Either way, his presence underscores the moral weight pressing down on Diane as her dream world crumbles. In the final stretch, the fantasy collapses completely, and the full tragedy of Diane's life becomes visible. We learn that after losing Camilla to another lover and being humiliated at a dinner party celebrating Camilla's engagement, Diane hired another hitman to kill her. When the hitman left the blue key as proof of completion, Diane's guilt consumed her. Alone in her apartment, haunted by grotesque visions of the elderly couple who once smiled at her in the dream, she breaks down. These tiny figures, now transformed into symbols of her suppressed guilt and failure, chase her through her mind until she can no longer bear it. In a final moment of despair, she retrieves a gun and ends her life. The sound of the gunshot fades into darkness, followed by fleeting images of Betty and Rita, smiling together, as if they still exist in some echo of the dream. The film concludes with a single whispered word, Silencio. The silence signifies both death and revelation, the end of illusion and the return to emptiness. Diane's suicide is not only the end of her life, but the destruction of the fantasy world she built to survive. Her dream, once comforting, becomes her undoing. Beneath its mystery, the ending of Mulholland Drive reveals several interconnected themes. The most central is the fragility of identity. Diane's split into Betty demonstrates how easily self-image can fracture under pressure and rejection. The film also explores the corrosive power of guilt and desire. Diane's love for Camilla, mixed with envy and self-hatred, drives her to both invent an idealized world and destroy the real one. Lynch's Hollywood is not simply a setting, but a metaphor for illusion itself, a place that feeds on dreams and discards those who cannot maintain them. In this city of appearances, Diane's yearning to be someone becomes fatal. The structure of the film reinforces its meaning, By showing the fantasy first and revealing reality later, Lynch immerses the audience into Diane's mind. We experience her dream as she does, believing it, feeling its hope, and then suffering its collapse. When the truth emerges, it's not a twist meant to shock, but a moment of emotional reckoning. The film's nonlinear design reflects the way memory and guilt intertwine, fragmented, repetitive, and unreliable. Lynch never provides an authoritative explanation for what Mulholland Drive means, and that ambiguity is central to its impact. The ending resists any single interpretation because it mirrors the chaos of the human psyche. To some viewers, Diane's final moments are literal, her life flashing before her eyes as she dies. To others, the dream represents purgatory, an in-between space where she tries to rewrite her sins before facing judgment. The film's refusal to resolve these possibilities makes it timeless, inviting each viewer to see their own reflection in Diane's fractured story. What ultimately lingers after the final whisper is a feeling of quiet devastation. The silence at the end, not simply the end of a narrative, but the extinction of a soul that could not reconcile fantasy with truth. Yet there's also something deeply human in Diane's delusion. Her dream, however self-destructive, arises from the same impulse that drives every action of creation, the desire to be loved, to be seen, to matter. Mulholland Drive transforms that longing into tragedy, showing how easily imagination can turn inward and consume its creator. The ending's power lies in this paradox. It is both surreal and painfully real, both impossible to explain and emotionally precise. When the screen fades to black, what remains is the echo of Diane's dream, a fragile reminder that even illusions, however doomed, are born out of hope. The film closes with silence, not as a void, but a kind of truth. When all stories end, when the lights go down and the performance is over, what's left is darkness that dreams tried so hard to conceal. And that's Mulholland Drive. No matter how many times I watch it, that ending still hits. The silence, the collapse of the dream, the sense that everything Diane built in her mind just disappears. It's tragic, but also kind of beautiful, because in a way, that's what the movie's about. How far we'll go to protect ourselves from pain, and what happens when the illusion finally falls apart. Lynch never gives us easy answers, but that's why his films keep pulling people back in. Every time you watch it, you see something new, a detail you missed, a line that suddenly feels different. It's like the movie shifts as you do. Thanks for listening and going down this strange, heartbreaking road with me. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, or share it with someone who still can't stop thinking about that blue box. Until next time, Silencio.